The Democrats made a huge mistake. They were hoping to capitalize off of Black Lives Matter protests to generate support for their party and votes against Donald Trump. The only problem was that these protests quickly became riots, and violence began to sweep across this country, and regular Americans took notice and were upset with it. The Democrats tried to ignore it, hoping it would all just go away. In fact, it seems like that's the mayor of Portland's strategy. He thought that he could just ignore the riots and eventually they get tired and they would stop, but they have not and they will not. And now the violence is worse than ever. The Democrats are now revealing they know they made a serious mistake. They're probably looking at internal polls. That's what many journalists are speculating, because Joe Biden has just come out with the largest campaign ad run to date, $45 million for 1 week, condemning rioting and looting. And you know what? Good on him. Credit where credit is due. Thank you for finally recognizing the extreme violence coming from the far left. But will the Democrats and Joe Biden condemn Black Lives Matter and Antifa for engaging in this violence? Likely no, because they still need support from these people. Not only is Joe Biden going to be launching this massive campaign ad run, he's actually going to Kenosha. Unfortunately, he's going after Trump already went, desperately playing catch up. Many people pointed out early on Joe Biden wasn't going to go. In fact, he wasn't going to go anywhere. And then Trump called him out. And now Biden says, OK, fine, I will go. I got to tell you, I can respect that they're now trying to do the right thing, but I don't think it's for the right reasons. I think they looked at their internal polls, they looked at the betting odds, and they looked at the fact that Trump is gaining nationally in the polls and winning in several battleground states, and they've started to panic. I think they're worried when Don Lemon brought it up on CNN saying focus groups are mentioning the rioting, and they realized they had no choice. But a lot of people are pointing out as well, isn't Donald Trump the president? Isn't this his responsibility? Well, if you follow my other channel, Timcast News, I mentioned that the Oregon State Police have been deputized by the federal government. So now when they make an arrest, it goes to federal prosecutors. That's something Trump is doing. He's not invoking the Insurrection Act. He's not invading localities, but he's empowering federal DAs, federal attorneys, not district attorneys, federal attorneys to actually prosecute these extremists. Does anyone believe that if Joe Biden became president, he would go after these people and stop them? The reason I say he won't is because he's already cutting deals with them. He refuses to call them out by name. You may remember that a couple of months ago, he launched that pact with Bernie Sanders where they compromised on many issues. He is begging these people for their support. If they give it to him, and assuming he wins, do you think he would just immediately turn his back and say, I don't need your support anymore? No, he would have to win re-election. We've already seen Joe Biden's campaign staff offer up funds to bail these people out, and so did Kamala Harris. They realize it backfired, and they're trying to play both sides. Well, I'm not into it. Surprisingly today, Joe Biden actually took questions from the press, and sure enough, it was a gaffe disaster, at least in one or two instances. So we're going to talk about this. I'm going to show you this. I do not believe that a sane, rational American who is going to look at what I'm about to show you would think that Joe Biden is the right choice for president. And that is not me saying that Donald Trump is the best candidate we've ever had. It's saying, I guess it's Donald Trump, because Joe Biden is not a real candidate. He is not able to be president, and he is compromising with the very people that he's claiming to condemn. Let's read the news. Before we do, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are many ways you can give. There's a P.O. box if you'd like to send stuff. But the best thing you can do is share this video. I don't have a major marketing department. I just have word of mouth. If you think I do a good job and my videos are pretty good, then consider sharing them on other platforms. And don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell. Let's read the news. From the New York Times, Biden to air Law and Order ad condemning rioters and looters. The ad, part of a $45 million 1 week television and digital purchase that is by far the campaign's largest to date, comes as the Democratic nominee pushes back against President Trump's attacks. This is absolute desperation. You need to understand what this means that he's running this ad. They tried to ignore the problem because they don't want you to realize they're in line with many of these people. Now, of course, Joe Biden isn't himself a radical socialist, but they're a part of his party, and he needs their support. He didn't want to highlight any of their violence because now he might have to condemn them. He might get asked about it. He didn't want people to know the violence was getting this bad. Now you need to realize early on, Joe Biden's strategy was to hammer Donald Trump on COVID, but now he can't. He's forced to play on Donald Trump's terms. He is entering Donald Trump's law and order battleground. And I'm sorry, Joe Biden cannot win in this arena, but he had no choice. This is a desperate Hail Mary pass, which is likely to fail. The New York Times says, Mr. Biden has reportedly condemned instances in which protests for racial justice have burst into violence, accusing Mr. Trump of stoking divisions and laying blame for any chaos on the current occupant of the White House. But the ad, part of a $45 million one-week television and digital purchase that is by far the campaign's largest to date, is the first time that Mr. Biden has put this pushback on issues of crime and public safety into a major paid advertising program. Quote, I want to make it absolutely clear, Biden says as images flash of burned out cars and buildings in confrontation with the police. Rioting is not protesting. Looting is not protesting. And those who do it should be prosecuted. I'm sorry, Mr. Biden, but in Portland, the DA is not prosecuting these people. Your party, not the Republicans, is responsible for this. Your political party disagrees with you. And the progressives are getting interviewed on NPR saying in defense of looting. So whose fault is it? I was in Ferguson when they looted and burned down buildings in that small town. And the next thing I see was this far left article titled in defense of looting. This was back in, I believe, 2015. And it's still happening to this date. Trump has consistently condemned the violence and called for law and order. No, Joe, you ignored it, trying to capitalize off of it, and now it's backfired in your face. Mr. Biden casts himself as a unifying figure who would seek to lower the temperature of the national debate and bring the country together. The spot ends with Mr. Biden, who is Catholic, quoting the former Pope John Paul II, be not afraid. Unlike many of Mr. Biden's recent ads, the 60-second spot does not mention the coronavirus pandemic. The Biden campaign said the ad would air nationally on cable television and in local markets in 9 battleground states: Arizona, Florida, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. States where Joe Biden is starting to do worse and Trump is starting to win. The speech in Pittsburgh and the advertising campaign are part of Mr. Biden's response to a Republican convention last week in which the GOP tried repeatedly to twist the former vice president's record on crime and policing, with Mr. Trump himself often amplifying the misleading claims on Twitter. I'm not going to play these games with the New York Times, but I will tell you, Joe Biden is the author of that famous 1994 crime bill. I believe it was 94. Yeah, I think the dude's an authoritarian, but he is a unifying figure. If you want to talk technically, he's unifying the far left extremists, the critical race theorists and intersectionalists, the people who are overtly racist, with the regular liberals of the Democratic Party. And that's why I've been forced out, and many other liberals have been forced out and are now going to vote for Trump. The critical race theorists, intersectional identitarians, are overt racists. They say it. There's a viral tweet going around right now where there's a digital town hall where these college students and their professor are straight up saying they are racist. Why would I take advice from them? And why would I want them in my party? Well, if Joe Biden believes they have a place in the Democratic Party, then I certainly don't, because my family rejects the overt racism of these critical race theorists who, let me remind you, in some of the best-selling books that they read, say they are overtly and avowed racists. A lot of people try to play this game that they're being forced to say these things. No, I'm telling you, they are saying it. Why is Joe Biden offering them a space in the Democratic Party? I guess they're trying to get back to their roots because the Democratic Party was historically racist to begin with. They can't let it go, can they? Well, Joe Biden is also going to be going to Kenosha, and this is also shockingly desperate. He had a chance to go there early this week on Monday. He didn't do it. Donald Trump went Tuesday. A lot of people said he should have gone, but he was too busy hiding in his basement. And I'm not trying to be mean, but that's quite literally what he's doing. Just staying in the basement, not doing any press conferences, not answering questions, not traveling, not rallying. I don't think the man is actually trying to win. I think they know he's going to lose. Well, now he's planning to go to Kenosha on Thursday. Playing catch up with Donald Trump does not bode well. You're chasing after the man. You are behind the curve and you have no idea what regular Americans are concerned about. Well, I'll tell you what they're concerned about. This image right here. Donald Trump ticks slightly ahead in, as of right now, it looks like Trump is just slightly underneath Joe Biden by 0.2 in the betting odds. Let's be real. That's a coin toss. Nobody knows who's going to win. I think Trump's going to win, but you better get out and vote if you want him to win. But this is a coin toss. Joe Biden had a tremendous lead. Look at this. There was a period where the betting odds were 60% for Biden, 36% for Trump, and now it's even. It's a coin toss. That's Joe Biden's fault. It's absolutely Joe Biden's fault. My view on it, extremely desperate. Biden and Dems avoided talking about violence because they didn't want to call attention to it, likely hoping many people were unaware as media called them peaceful protests. Biden is now playing on Trump's turf and he can't win. Now that Biden is forced to highlight violence, Trump will hammer him, and no one, for the most part, will believe Biden is strong enough to do anything about it. Yeah, I don't think Biden's going to be able to stop the violence. I think Trump can. Yashir Ali, journalist, tweeted, whether people think this is the right strategy or not, or whether the criticism is fair or not, Biden would not be doing this if the polls and focus groups didn't show that this is a weak spot for him. Yeah, the Democrats are panicking, backpedaling, and trying now to condemn the very people they financially supported. And that's the point I was making in the previous tweet. When they go to debate and Trump says Joe Biden's campaign staff was paying the bail fund for these people, what's Joe going to say? Kamala Harris solicited funds for them. Their best bet was to ignore this. They couldn't. The American people are fed up. And that's going to come up in the debates. And Joe Biden will have no answer, none whatsoever. Well, Students for Trump says President Donald Trump tours what Biden will do to America, looking at riot damage. And Twitter user Liberal Not Lefty said, quote, don't vote for Biden, because if he is POTUS, this will happen. The POTUS, it literally happened under. I think it's interesting that this is kind of a narrative that people are pushing. Well, I respect Liberal Not Lefty. I follow her on Twitter, and I think she normally has good takes. But this one I disagree with. Donald Trump deputized, or I should say the federal government deputized the Oregon State Police. He could have invoked the Insurrection Act. He didn't. Donald Trump is not in league with Antifa. He criticizes them every step of the way. And he's routinely criticized Black Lives Matter as a Marxist organization. He's not trying to placate them. He is not trying to offer up concessions to them. So what do you think would happen if Joe Biden was president? The Democrats have already proven incapable of stopping the violence. You think the right choice now is to put a Democrat in the executive office and cross your fingers that will stop everything? Well, I think the best bet is that Trump unleash the feds. I should put it that way, that the local governments accept federal assistance like Wisconsin did and bring in the National Guard and shut it down immediately. Trump's already taken very clever action with deputizing these state police. I think that was brilliant. That's one way to do it. You think Joe Biden would? I don't. I think it'll get worse. And Joe Biden will do what he did a couple months ago. Democratic task force delivers Biden a blueprint for a progressive presidency. The far left is not happy with where Joe Biden is at. They do not believe he is far left enough. But I'll tell you this, if he's cutting deals with the far left, some kind of compromise for their vote, what do you think he's going to do with the far left extremists who are infecting various government agencies with critical race theory and who are burning down buildings? Do you think he's going to turn on them and say, thanks for voting for me, now I'm going to condemn you? No, he's going to say, don't forget, I'm running for re-election in 4 years when he'll be, 82 or whatever. And they're going to say, sure, because Joe Biden's giving us what we want. They've said this. Joe Biden is malleable. They have said it's easier to overthrow a bumbling old Joe Biden than it is to overthrow a fascist. They know that he will compromise, and he already has. So I ask you this question. What is radicalization? Is radicalization wanting strong borders for your country? No, we've always had that. I mean, Hillary Clinton was in favor of border barriers. Bernie Sanders was in favor of getting rid of the same deals Trump was and securing our borders. So that can't be radical, can it? Is it radical to say that we should lower unemployment and bring our factories back? No, that's a pretty popular position. Most people like the idea. Is it radical to put a moratorium on deportations and decriminalize border crossings? Yes. Is it radical to abolish private health care? Yes. That's the far left. And Joe Biden is compromising with them, with his, blueprint for a progressive presidency, working with Bernie Sanders to come up with, a joint effort by Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders to unify Democrats around Biden's candidacy, has produced a 110-page policy wish list to recommend the party's presumptive presidential nominee. So what do you think happens? I'll leave it to you to comment, because I think I know what's going to happen. The dude's already giving them what they want. He's going to need to get reelected. And moderates and Trump supporters who are not fans of the far left aren't going to vote for him if he's doing this. He's going to need to double down on his support from the far left and try harder. Christopher Catalego says, Biden says officers who shot Jacob Blake should be charged, joining Kamala, who said this in response to a question last week. And there it is. With no proper investigation, with nothing, just a gut reaction from media videos, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to throw the police under the bus. I told you, he is going to give the far left what they want, and he is doing it right now. I mean, the first response says, with no complete investigation, laughable. It is. Even the feds going after Antifa and the Black Lives Matter extremists in Portland took about 2 months before they filed any formal charges. Why would Joe Biden think it's a good idea to come out and say, we don't have all the evidence, we don't know what happened? Charge the officers. With what? There's been no investigation. Has there even been a grand jury? There's no indictment? You just want to snap your fingers and have it go. I'm telling you, man. We saw this happen in Atlanta. The morality police don't care about what's just. They don't care about equality under the law. They care about power. And Joe Biden will give it to them. So, yeah, if Joe Biden's president, it will get worse. I want to show you this clip. It's not just about Joe Biden being weak. It's about him being incapable of being the president. Donald Trump tweeted, seriously, is this what our great USA wants as its leader? Take a listen.
COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, has taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. When you think about it.
This happens all the time. Joe Biden incapable of giving us a sentence, any kind of cohesive thought. I know that Joe Biden, when he does these long speeches, he says many things, and we don't highlight the whole speech. We highlight the points where he struggles to speak and he says something that's just insane, garbled nonsense. COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, has taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. It's just when you think about it. I don't know what he's trying to say. I really don't. A lot of journalists like to finish his ideas for him, but we cannot have a president who can't speak. And today, here's a tweet from Benny Johnson. Biden to Trump. Stop your boast about never being seemed at you. You can do anything. I have no idea what this one's supposed to say.
And stop your boast about never being seemed at what you can do anything. You always talk about your ability to negotiate.
I don't know what Joe Biden's trying to say, but I can tell you this. I don't think Joe Biden should be president for so many reasons. When you look at these clips just right off the bat, come on, man. To use Joe Biden's catchphrase at this point, come on, man. You can't be serious with this guy. Now, Donald Trump's got his issues, but he's done a great job with the economy before COVID, and he's been all about law and order. I think Donald Trump's response to COVID itself was fine. There's nothing really to compare it to. I mean, we're a republic. The states are responsible for what they do. People want to blame him for it. He had a plan. He had phases. He announced them. Remember, he was like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. The governors, it's up to them to do what they need in order to properly deal with COVID. I can't blame Trump for that. Trump has called for law and order. He's condemned the riots. I appreciate that. He did a good job in the economy. That's fantastic. And he's got some foreign policy moves that I like. But Joe Biden can't even talk. Now, Joe Biden's got some policies that are fine, but he can't even talk. And too much of what he's doing is pandering to the far left. Trump attacks take a toll on Black Lives Matter support. But a new Politico Morning Consult poll shows more voters favor Joe Biden to handle public safety. I am just not buying it, man. I go on Instagram And there are a few, I follow a decent amount of people, and, people share stuff with me, and I'm seeing people I never thought would be a Trump supporter being Trump supporters. So you know what? If in 2016, I knew people in 2016 that hated Donald Trump that today love him. I don't think Trump has lost support. I think he's gained tremendous support. I think Trump's attacks on Black Lives Matter, it's not so much about Trump saying it. It's about people realizing Trump was right. We've seen the videos. We know what's going on around our own country. You can't keep lying about it. And that's taken a toll on Black Lives Matter support. So Politico will say it's Trump's attacks. That's not fair. I think regular people are smart enough to recognize what's happening and to ask questions. I think regular people saw saw buildings being burnt down and people being executed in the street in Portland. Trump supporter was shot in the chest twice, and you all probably know it by now. And they asked themselves, what is happening to our country? And Joe Biden ignored it for months. I wonder how many people who had to spray paint, "Please don't hurt us, we support Black Lives Matter," or put up flyers saying, "Please spare our store." I wonder how many of those people used to be Democrats, and now they feel abandoned by Joe Biden. I wonder how many Democratic voters are more concerned about trade. The Iron Range in Minnesota, 6 of these cities endorsed Donald Trump's reelection, a Democrat stronghold, flipped for Trump after decades, voting Republican on economic issues, not even the riots. Joe Biden's lost it. He's lost the plot. He's not working class Joe, and it's all falling down around him. Biden's lead in Pennsylvania shrinks to 4 points in new poll. This is Biden's state. It's supposed to be, Joe Biden's supposed to be the PA guy. This is his home state. And Trump has taken the lead. Or I should say, he's gaining, he's narrowing the gap, according to this poll. That's bad news for Biden, man. When you consider there are a lot of people who are going to be first-time voters now voting for Trump, just like last time. When you consider the things Trump has done that people like, notably the economy, notably law and order, and also, in that sense, the announcements of these kids being saved and human trafficking. Yeah, people are snapping to attention, seeing what's going on. And for me, my principal issue is the critical race theory. We recently heard from, I believe it's Christopher Rufo. He called on Donald Trump to issue an executive order eliminating critical race theory from the federal government. I agree. Absolutely. It's an overtly racist ideology. And, inadvertently, it would hurt the Democrats because the Democrats are overtly racist right now. They really are. I mean, maybe they've always been. Seriously. They were the party of the Klan and Jim Crow. And now they're openly endorsing an extremist ideology. And their adherents are avowed racists. I can't stress that enough, man. When you see these people like Robin DiAngelo say they're racist, why would we listen to them? When did we become a country where we are like, as those of us who don't like racism need to prop up racists? It's the most insane thing I've ever seen. I don't think Trump is perfect, but I think Trump opposes this stuff. And I think it's particularly important that we support Trump in that regard. Otherwise, you will end up in a country one day with morality police, and you won't like what that means. So when we see Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, like I mentioned early on, calling for the charges for the officers in Kenosha, you know what this means? They don't believe in English common law, the right of the individual to have a trial. I mean, to be fair, they're calling for charges, but with no investigation. I mean, come on, that seems unreasonable. We have grand juries for a reason. If you look at what happened with many of these instances, particularly in Atlanta, when they charged this officer, just immediately when someone fired a taser at him, morality policing means they come to your home. They try and burn it down. And the cops say, well, what did you do? It means that when you say a naughty word, they show up to your house and they arrest you. They've decided it is easier to arrest you than it is to deal with a mob. And it's happened before, and it's starting now. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris showed their true colors with this call. And that's the most dangerous thing, in my opinion. So look, they're desperate. They're absolutely desperate. They've decided their only option is to play on Trump's turf, and I think they'll lose because of it. But they would have lost if they did nothing. Wait till you see this debate. Trump need only say, Joe Biden, your campaign staff, according to Reuters, funded the rioters. What's he going to say? Well, no, those were protesters. No, that's not true. You can actually look at who got bailed out. Rioters. That's on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at youtube.com/TimCastNews. It is another channel, and that'll be at 6 p.m. Thanks for hanging out. Then I will see you all then.